One of the best ways to keep growing as a person is by focusing on self-improvement and doing more for yourself on a regular basis. This might mean taking steps towards reaching a goal, or simply adding a few things into your day that make you feel good. To get started with your self-improvement, consider focusing on the list below, which can help you reach your goals. Self-image. As we look into a mirror, we see a reflection of ourselves, but that is just our physical reflection. Deep inside our minds, we have built another image for ourselves. That inside self-image is controlling our life. The way we see ourselves has a direct influence on our beliefs, thoughts, and actions. And that will determine the results we achieve in our life. Our feelings and emotions affect our performance. But these emotions can change from one moment to another or day to another. On the other hand, self-image doesn't change that often, but it also affects our productivity and performance. There are people with very poor self-image or low self-esteem. Those won't look straight in the eye or shake hands with others. They are shy and withdrawn and don't like themselves because they don't know themselves. But when a person changes his self-image, his whole life will also change. To do that, we must start to know ourselves. When we understand who we are, we begin to have the highest forms of creation, and our minds will blow and we will enjoy our life. There are three elements of a person's self-image: the way he thinks of himself, the belief in what others think of him, and the way that person he would like to be. What you think of yourself is what you will see in your life, whether bad or good. Changing this self-image needs time. Subconscious mind. Deep into our subconscious mind hides the things we experience and the things hidden from our awareness. This subconscious is like a storehouse of instincts, urges, desires, and memories, all beyond our awakening awareness. This subconscious is just like the submerged portion of an iceberg. What we can see of the iceberg is that aspect of our personality present in waking life. Like the iceberg, however, so much exists below the surface that informs the character of what appears above it. These hidden from our awareness are what influence our character and personality. These urges become denied in early childhood when our sense of individuality is still under construction because they are taboo perhaps in our society or an individual family unit. As a result, they become repressed and washed out to reside in the hidden world of the unconscious, where they are largely unknown to us. We can make them appear through forms of contemplative practices like meditation and visualization. These are all effective ways to bring the hidden underworld of the subconscious to light. Because the subconscious often includes unresolved aspects of our personality, these practices can help us integrate these shadowy parts of ourselves to live a more fulfilled and efficient life. Mental self-defense. Defense mechanisms are the brain's ways of keeping us safe from being fully aware of unpleasant thoughts and feelings. Sometimes we prefer to use specific defense mechanisms like regression, denial, and rationalization. Here's a list of the most common defense mechanisms. Alternation. The shift of emotions, such as anger, from the source to a substitute target. For example, your dad says something hurtful, and since you cannot always confront your dad, you later yell at your sister or brother. Making excuses. To develop incorrect, though plausible reasons to justify irrational or unacceptable behavior. For example, stealing from the rich to give the poor, excused as helping the poor and those in need, is a noble cause. Regression. Revert to childlike patterns of behavior. For example, a student gets a bad grade on their test and screams and cries at their parents or teacher. Denial. To bury thoughts and feelings that are distressing into the subconscious. For example, a psychopath will deny they have it because they see themselves differently. Suppression. Refocus on unacceptable impulse, thoughts, and raw emotions into more acceptable ones. For example, instead of facing your problems, you take to alcohol or drugs to get rid of painful emotions. Isolation. The detachment from reality and finding another expression of self to deal with extreme stress or conflict. A person who does not experience unbearable thoughts, feelings, or memories for some time uses isolation as a defense mechanism, disconnects from reality, and lives in his world. Intellectualization. Overthink and misdirection of focus when confronted with unacceptable situation, behaviors, or impulses. For example, a person who has known that a close family member has died begins to focus on and overthink the details of planning a funeral, etc., instead of expressing their grief. Thinking about the past is natural. Revisiting the past can help you memorize the lessons you have learned from making mistakes. But persistently dwelling on your past or thinking about events that already happened may cause you distress. It is especially the case if you are focused on bad events or emotions that once were. Past life facts do not mean you cannot change. You may not be able to change what happened, but you can change how you think about and perceive it. It will change the present and the future. The past doesn't exist in our minds as facts that did happen exactly. We always recreate our past based on our experience of it. So we can divert it in a way that serves us now and in the future. We don't need to change what happened to feel differently. The right thing to do is to understand the experience. Then we can start affecting our life experiences now and in the future goes, because life is about constantly changing and developing ourselves. Our inner voices are related to outer voices. We take in expressions from the tone of others. An irritated or angry parent. The words of a teacher who seemed impossible to please. The authority figures repeat their messages frequently until they get stuck in our minds. We suppress unpleasant voices in order to protect ourselves from breaking apart. Many of us grew up in a bad environment, surrounded by nervous people who lost their tempers the moment they were knocked off course for relatively minor reasons. For example, having to pay bills irritates your father, so he becomes mad at any little mistake you make for no logical reason. These people had no faith in themselves, and therefore, without necessarily wanting to do us harm, couldn't have much faith in our abilities either. Every time we had a school exam, they got more alarmed than we did. They always asked multiple times if we had enough to wear when we went outside. These voices have become our own and cloud our capacity to know what we are capable of doing. At bad times, we need an alternative voice that can pose our runaway fears and remind us of the strength we have within us, which the currents of panic have hidden from us. We need to absorb a voice that isolates our accomplishments from love. We are worthy of respect, even if we fail. Being a winner is only one part and not necessarily the most crucial part of one's identity. This voice is usually the voice of the mother, but it might also be the voice of a dear friend, lover, advisor, film character, or an author we like. It is the voice of a person who loves us for being who we are aside from achievement. We want to hear them frequently, especially in hard times, so they come to feel normal reactions. Ultimately, they come to feel like things we are saying to ourselves. They become our thoughts. In the end, if you focus on getting better by at least 1% each day, this will make you 365% better through a single year, which is a significant improvement for an individual. Can you imagine if every one of us does the same thing? The things that we humankind can achieve? So start focusing on your self-improvement from this moment on and take one step to success.